A Scandinavian showdown to get our pulses racing, and race they will indeed. With so much up for grabs, Heroic and NIP will be colliding in full force as they hope to survive the tournament gauntlet. Of course, with so much on the line, we've got to remind ourselves of exactly what these teams are competing for. Of course, this is an EU RMR event, which replaces the minor system for the upcoming Rio Major. So let's remind ourselves of the current standings coming into this RMR event. Of course, Vitality are going to be topping currently, but expect that to potentially be shaping up a little bit more. Of course, teams will be awarded points for their placements at this RMR tournament. And of course, that will affect going into the upcoming major, exactly where they will be placed in the competition. Of course, then we've also got the road to Katowice coming up here as part of the ESL Pro Tour. Again, as we can see, the standings for this will be shaking up a little bit more as well, but this is currently where we see our team standing going into this, and we'll be providing 100% of the points value for the next EPC Masters Championship in Katowice, and then 50% value for the upcoming championship in Cologne in 2021. And last, but no means least, coming up here, it's the IEM Global Challenge. Of course, alongside taking home the lion's share of the prize money here at DreamHack Open 4, the winner of this tournament will also claim a spot at the tournament later in the year. So a lot on the line for all four teams remaining here in the competition. And of course, with so much on the line, I need some of the greatest minds in CS to be breaking it down with me. And I've got that in the form of Potter and Maui. Maui, it's pretty nuts. This is the penultimate day of action here at Open 4. There's been so much going on and still so much on the line for the teams remaining.
Yeah, definitely. NIP, they actually are making a huge jump in those RMR standings, actually. I think they were pretty low when we saw that graphic, like 10th or something, but now they are actually guaranteed top 3, if I'm not mistaken, in the RMR points. So there is a really good shot that they just slot into the majors as a legend status, which is not something you would really expect from this NIP lineup. So that's pretty cool. There's a lot on the line here, and it's really sick to see how far these teams have come.
Yeah, it's been incredible to be witnessing them every step of the way. And I think with that, we can give you guys a little bit of a recap of our playoff bracket, see exactly how our teams made it here. Of course, a lot of this is being filled up over the past week, but we do find ourselves at the latter end of the bracket. But I want to start off, Potter, just by looking at some of the teams and the runs that they've had here. Of course, we see Astralis at the top of that, running all the way through to that upper bracket grand final. But now they've been booted down by Vitality, no less. So the Great Danes are still going to be tested here.
Yeah, and just another hurdle for one of these teams in Heroic or NIP to get over that last one for themselves. And even take a look at NIP's road there. OG, FaZe, G2, just the gigantics that they had to beat in order to even make it to this point. It's quite impressive, and especially when we consider the fact that so many superstar plays have been showcased by this NIP squad. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been absolutely incredible to witness. We talk about them as being perhaps one of the upsets of the tournament, but it's been no luck by the side of NIP. They've absolutely competed against every single team they faced. And of course, they're going to have to beat Heroic if they want a shot at that grand final place. So I think with that, we can get into the map veto for this tournament, Potter. I'm wondering what your thoughts are coming into this one.
I think Heroic, they should be vetoing out that Dust 2. NIP, they veto out that Nuke. Now, when Nuke is not available, Heroic always lean towards that Vertigo. So that should be the same case here. And NIP, they've been winning Overpass. So I think they should probably pick that Overpass as well. Train.
Yep.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Train coming out there. That's interesting because we saw them banning it out against Fnatic, right? But that was a little bit of a weird one because actually NIP had looked pretty decent on Train, but they just wanted to float that Vertigo. So interested to see what the third and final map will be, and it will be Overpass, Maui.
Yeah, I feel like this actually slightly favors NIP a little bit more than I would have thought. I'm a little surprised that NIP, again, like Potter said, didn't pick Overpass, but they have got to be really happy about this veto, in all honesty. Train and Overpass are maps that they are really comfortable on, and Vertigo is a map that they have by no means looked shabby on either.
No, and let's focus in on Vertigo to begin off this discussion, because we saw them pulling it out. Well, they didn't pull it out necessarily against Fnatic, it was just left in the veto. But the fact that it was left in there, we're actually looking at NIP not playing it that much. But Christine, they looked very, very solid on this map.
They did. You know, and once again, I have to mention Vertigo for Heroic is kind of a comfort home map pick. So that 53% win rate, usually we'll see that a lot higher. They've been playing the toughest of competitions and not backing down and always picking it first in their series. So NIP, although they looked so strong versus Fnatic yesterday on it, they've got a lot of work ahead of them in this first map.
Yeah, they do indeed. And of course, as always, we want to hear what you guys are saying down in the Twitch chat. Make sure you're getting those votes in for your favorite team. And of course, we'll be recapping them just before we jump into the match. But with that, I think it's time to check in with one of our teams. The wonderful Frankie had a chance to catch up with none other than Borup ahead of this one.
Borup joins me now, and I feel like I would be missing out on a golden opportunity if I didn't ask you why you love the MP5 so much, Borup. So tell me why you're obsessed with this gun.
I find it very easy to actually spray control with it, and just in general, it's way more precise on longer range than any other MP5 or any other SMG, if you ask me. It's a bit more expensive, but I mean, it's between either that and MP9 or a FAMAS, and sometimes I choose the FAMAS too. If I need some nades, I'll go with the MP5.
I think you might have started a revolution. I swear I saw one of Astralis with an MP5 the other day. And NIP are looking great at anti-strutting at the moment. We're probably going to see you face them on Vertigo. Do you feel like you need to switch things up to avoid being countered so easily?
Not at all. I think Casper will handle the unpredictableness we have in our game, and I don't think they're going to be able to read us.
Well, Borup, it is lovely to get to chat to you because we don't get to do this very often. I'm off to find a baseball cap because I'm quite jealous of the way you're rocking that thing. Good luck in your match against NIP.
Thanks.
Man, I love Frankie and I love Borup as well. I love that she asked him about those spicy gun picks because I absolutely love that. And we saw Heroic doing that against none other than North, picking out that full P90s across the board. But of course, I do want to talk about Vertigo to be starting things off here, Maui, because we've seen Heroic, looking pretty dominant on this map. The most recent win over Big, 16-5, and they've been really spicing up the way that we kind of view Vertigo being played.
Yeah, actually, both of these teams have really solid Vertigos. I'd say that Heroics is a little bit more set in that they do a lot more kind of consistent plays, but yesterday, the look from NIP on the map was really interesting. The aggressive plays from Hampus in particular really caught my eye in how much he was able to take away from Fnatic, a team that's usually just battling for control constantly. But oh man, Heroic on it as well, just so interesting. I think the hallmark play is definitely the P90 rush towards middle. I'm not sure if that's Furia's play first or theirs, but either way, it's a lot of fun to watch when they do pull it out.
It is so much fun to watch. I do want to pull our attention towards the man in the middle of that roster, though, Potterstan. I know you were speaking about him being your dream teammate, perhaps, in the future. But just talking about him in the context of this competition, he's been looking super solid for this Heroic side. He looks fearless at most times.
He absolutely does. And it's actually especially on this Vertigo map. He's so comfortable on it. So many different secondary plans for himself just as an individual to get himself a pick, get himself forward in a better position, and get himself all of that B stairs control. In the last match that Heroic played, you mentioned it, Freya, Stahl was even towards that A ramp, over rotating, extremely mobile, and that's due to Borup being such a nuisance with that MP5, getting pop flashes from his teammates and having full control of the stairs. So definitely for Heroic side of things, I can absolutely see why they always lean onto this Vertigo. It seems to me that they just have strat after strat after strat that they can lean onto in any sort of circumstance.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see how the guys from NIP will be dealing with this, and hopefully we'll get a few words from Hampus as Frankie had a chance to chat with him.
Hampus, congratulations on making the lower bracket finals. You'll be facing Heroic, and given that we've just seen you playing and beating Fnatic on Vertigo, I have a feeling we're going to see it again. What do you think of Heroic's approach to the map?
They're very good on it, especially on the city side. I think their city side is probably the best in the world. But I think if we really stick to our plan against them, I think it would be good for us.
Vertigo was a map that around the time that you came into NIP, it was a map that was being played a lot. It seemed to be developed quite a lot by Threat, and then you walked away from it. Is it going to potentially become a primary pick in your map pool again?
Yeah, I hope so. Like when I replaced Lekru, Vertigo was their best map, and then I joined and it became our worst map somehow. So I guess I was the problem, but we're figuring stuff out on it now, and I think we're finding our way to how to play it. So it's just getting better and better.
Well, I hope we're going to see it because I have a feeling it's going to be a fiery one. Thank you so much, Hampus.
Thank you.
I love that we get to have a few words from Hampus there about this Vertigo pick coming into it. And we hear him saying, Christine, he feels like Heroic have one of the best CT sides in the world on this map. But that's not going to fear them because we actually saw them playing up against Fnatic, as Maui was just saying earlier. And they looked, again, really, really solid on this map. So I'm wondering, Christine, what are your kind of perceptions of the team coming into this first one?
I'm so glad that we actually got to see the interview exactly from Hampus because that's exactly who I'm looking for, especially on Vertigo and on the T side of things. When he mentions Heroic CTs being that strong, it's going to be a lot of work for Hampus to be able to find the holes that he was finding yesterday. He was able to slip past the defenses towards that A and constantly find a multi-kill for himself, which just made Fnatic's defenses falter completely. I don't know that he's going to have that sort of a luxury this time around, but if Hampus's game senses are tingling as nicely as it was yesterday, he's certainly going to have those kinds of opportunities for himself.
Yeah, it's surely going to be a huge one. I think we need to talk about Rez as well on this lineup, Mario, because we've seen him being really, really consistent, having some of the best performances of his whole career at this very tournament. So I'm wondering what your perception of him is coming into this one.
Yeah, Rez is a player whose mechanical skill has never been doubted. It is the consistency that we've been kind of hoping for eventually from him. But yeah, like you mentioned, at this tournament, he's had some excellent series. I think the one against FaZe was really notable, and we can never forget the one that he had against OG, or on Nuke at least. That 2.26 rating was just... it was mind-boggling, some of the shots that he was hitting and the kind of risks he was willing to take, but he was hitting those shots when his team needed him to most. And if they want to be able to beat Heroic, he's going to have to actually really be firing and not fall into his old kind of inconsistent ways. That consistency is key for them today.
Well, of course, we've got to bring up our head-to-head as well, Christine. And this one, it's going to be the Battle of the Orpas that we're comparing here. So what are we making of these two players?
It's going to be Nock heading up against Cadian. And Nock, I've been complimenting him all week long, and as it should be, because he's had such impact within these series. Now, both of these offers for both teams in their last series, they weren't quite the superstars. And I know that's kind of weird saying that about Cadian as the in-game leader, but Cadian has showcased so much consistency and so much impact for his Heroic lineup over the last 6 months that I think he absolutely deserves to be up there, considered a superstar. The rounds that he's able to provide for the Heroic side of things it's something to be impressed about.
Yeah, it is. I'm super impressed as well that some of those stats were literally the same for both players. I think that is the best comparison we've ever had, and we're going to be looking at them to be bringing that same heat coming into this match, as it is really life or death time. And speaking of which, I think we need to get down to our predictions. Maui, who are you siding with for this one?
Oh man, I actually really wanted to go in today picking Heroic, but this veto feels excellent for NIP. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with NIP. I feel like they really are just powering up every single round of this tournament, and Nock, he's been so impressive. And I know we already kind of moved on from that, but one really quick stat that Nock has that just blows me out of the water is the fact that he has the second lowest attempt rates for opening kills in the entire tournament. Yet he actually has the third highest multi-fragging rounds. So he's barely getting kills in the early round, but he's always finding multi-frags in the late round. And as an opper, I feel like that is going to put NIP over the edge here.
Oh, interesting stuff. Potter, I know you've loved a little bit of Nip Magic. Can it continue today?
No, those stats just tell me that he's a really good baiter. So I'm going to go with Heroic here. I'm going with Heroic. I'm going with my future teammate, Stan. I think they should be able to take this one.
I'm also going to side with you, Potter. I'm going to go for the guys from Heroic. But I do think this map veto is going to make this series really, really spicy. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what both teams will be bringing to our first map, which will be Vertigo. And of course, got to check in with Twitch chat as well. Man, the siding with you, Maui, with NIP. Are you feeling the Nip Magic, the Nip Love today?
I'm feeling the knock, whatever that is. He's knocking at your door.
Well, I think with that, we can throw it into our first game of the day, and it's going to be a spicy one to be kicking off the proceedings indeed. It might be early, but one of these two teams is going to receive a rude awakening. It's been an absolute gauntlet, but now only one will make it onto that grand finals. It's Heroic versus NIP after this.
The penultimate day of DreamHack Open Fall starts right now. But for one of these two teams, it is the end of the road. Our lower bracket matchup between Nip and Heroic. We've not had the pleasure of casting Nip so far, Tom. So this should be an interesting one to get into. And they've turned a lot of heads. They've had some really good results.
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised that you look at a lot of their rankings within, for example, the Pro Tour, they're quite far down the list. Like a recent tournaments obviously being played with Threat didn't go particularly well. And now they've sort of added a player back into the roster. You go, okay, well, they're going to need some time to pick up some steam. And instead, top 4. That's already a huge win in my books. I think looking at all the teams they've gone through as well, like they smashed OG, who've been a team that we've been sort of raving about throughout the tournament. We'd be like, yeah, OG look fantastic. They've knocked out Fnatic, who've been on the rise. They knocked out FaZe, or at least beat them earlier, as they were a team as well who'd recently won a tournament. They have been tearing through everyone in their path who we expected them to fail to. And I'll be honest, at this point, we have to start believing in some Nip magic once again.
Absolutely cannot write them off. Heroic, though, second in the world for good reason. This is a team that you cannot sleep on, even though they've had a couple of sketchy results. This is a map that they are certainly comfortable with. Starting on the T side, already occupying down on the ramp, all 5 players strong. And they have a healthy dosage of grenades between the two of them, looking for a potential boost over from Cadian. Having a quick peer up, now a run boost across. As they look to try and pincer in towards the scaffolding in the side area. Hampus behind the sandbags. Make it unchecked, but that Molotov will force him out of position, running straight into the face of Cadian. He had a bit of rough performance yesterday, and it seems his woes continue. Hampus now turning his attention towards the site where he's locking it down with ease. Although Nip are conceding a couple of players, they still find themselves a player to the good. And 2 weakened members of the Danes as Stored is caught napping on the bomb. He picked up the only 2 frags that Heroic have managed to muster up, and Nork finishes it off with Nip picking up the pistol.
Yeah, very well done from them. I'll be honest, I'm always a little bit surprised when I see a team Molotov out the sandbags and not wait to clear it. Like, I get that they technically did leave Cadian behind, but if you buy that Molotov, if you invest in that utility, I want to see you wait to get that kill. Like, it's a lot easier if they're just a bit more patient. Then they go into that site taking a 5 versus 4. So maybe a little bit off with the timing. I get they wanted to try and be a little bit quicker getting in there, but they've given NIP a really good opener and also left them with the chance to sort of pincer in the remaining players on the bomb site. So well played by the Swedes. Something to be desired for Heroic. And while this round, it's their economy that's to be desired. They have managed to get an opener, and there's some heavy investment into rifles from the Ninjas. It's going relatively well so far, but they've got to be careful. Nico, he may not be the out-and-out star of this team, but he can definitely pull out some Deeg magic every once in a while. This time, though, he gets pincered, and there's nothing Storm can do. 2-0, the Ninjas convert. They'll retrieve at least 1 extra rifle along the way, although they've still lost a couple in the mix. However, Vince, for this round, doesn't really matter.
Indeed. They missed out on an M4 being dropped across a little bit awkwardly, but as you said, the fact that Heroic can't really put anything into this round in terms of a solid purchase means you're expecting to see these 2 MP9s shred in for some more frags. So it shouldn't end up mattering a great deal. Decent nade for Tessis, catches that one. That's minimal damage. I actually thought that had chunked him at first, the way it bounced into him. But Nip in prime position to fend off a 3-0. Heroic do have a P250 in the mix for Storm. A player that certainly is quite the young talent coming from the Danish region. And it really is a case of so many players that you feel have been undercovered and haven't quite realized their full potential from the Danish region. When you think of the population of Denmark and how many great players they have, it really is quite mind-boggling. And you look at the UK and you just kind of look to the ground in embarrassment, Tom.
All right, Cloud9 got us covered. We're good now. We've gone, you know what? It hasn't worked in the past, so let's get one of the greatest players to ever come from Turkey, stick him in there and get him to carry our boys through. I'm excited. I'm ready for that. But unfortunately, I'll have to wait a little bit longer to see them play. But either way, yeah, it's definitely not fair. I think when it came to Counter-Strike, the world has been a little bit biased towards Denmark with the amount of talent that's come from there. And it's something we mentioned before. Like, you have to remember a lot of these players were in other decent level teams and overlooked. Like, sure, you could say Storm was probably the star back in the day of the Fragsters roster, but at the same time, the man who was picked up was Refresh. Like, he was the one that came out of that team on top, at least initially, in the early stages. Tessus as well was someone who, when it came to that sort of Optic roster, was actually relatively left behind, left out of there. So I'm sure there's a few people with some serious regrets now looking at this team and going, yeah, we actually had most of those players. And when I say some teams, I basically mean North.
Yeah, North have let a lot of opportunities go begging, haven't they? But they are no longer a part of this puzzle. Heroic and Nip stand face to face, and it's Nip that refuse to blink. Even with a lack of a buy compared to the full AKs, they still have the player advantage, but not for much longer. Cadian, it's not with the Orpies having impact, it's with the AK-47. And with those two casualties over on B, it forces away the rotation for Hampus, who himself is pretty low. And Rez tries to dip in behind them, tries to go for the flank. Hampus now holding the line with the MP9 in for 2, using that box to perch up and stilt himself into some victory, but now he is the last man standing. One of these two is Storm, who's on 19 HP. Actually 18, pardon me. And he could be the last one to fall because Hampus is locking it down. He's on for the ace as well. The Swede is going to come out ahead. And Nip, you speak about magic. That's a rabbit out the hat.
He's got 10 grand. He's just made a bag for himself in this round. This is ridiculous. Like, he gets 1 or 2, and I'm like, okay, you know what? That's pretty impressive. To clutch the 1v2, I don't know what just went wrong for Heroic. They're going to be absolutely kicking themselves, and you sort of saw the reaction of his teammates in the background, and it's warranted. That was a ridiculous play from Hampus, and he mentioned in his interview, maybe I was the problem on Vertigo, he says, acing them with an MP9 in round 4.
Just unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, hey, we've had some cracking games. We've been very fortunate with the matches we've got to cast. I didn't expect this to get so lively this early on. And this is Heroic's choice. They're already 4-0 down. Don't need to push the panic button just yet. But if Hampus is feeling it, there's a lot more threats on the table they have to contend with. Smoke out onto scaffolding. Will stall away Heroic a little bit longer, but they won't be fully deterred by this. They still push into position. Hampus, 8 kills, 4 assists, 213 ADR. Not a bad start.
Guys, it's pretty decent. I'm not gonna lie. He's also been able to hand an AWP over to Nork as well. So the buy that they've got now going into this round is pretty phenomenal. Even still with 5,000 in the bank ready for any repurchases. This time they're being a little bit more careful, trying to clear back corner. Now the smoke that's been thrown down is almost to try and bait them into believing there's someone here. You can see in fact Cadian's taking so much time trying to clear it, but luckily Storm is in play. 2 kills for him. Now they don't need to continue this aggression. They can just reset the round, but the problem is the time. 15 seconds available to them. Storm has to get going now with a MAC-10 in hand, but he's still going to find another kill. And again, it's left onto 1 man, but the clock is ticking down. Wopski's in with a chance, but Cadian will decapitate him before the round ends. A nice attempt from NIP, and that 1 smoke they threw over towards the sandbags actually wasted a lot of time. But luckily for Heroic, Storm was about.
Makes the question, though. If Storm wasn't about, are we looking at yet another round on Nip? Probably. And I believe they lost, what, 4 players that last round? 3 or 4? So they find themselves in a position where they've just won their first round. Their economy in the bin again. Hampus has been tagged on the cross down to 33. But again, you could also look across to the Swedes. And it's not as if their economy's in great shape. They also survived with 1 player. It was that Hampus ace. So both teams feeling it right now. Incendiary tossed down towards the B stairs. Forces Nico away. He's yet to get on the board in terms of frags, but he'll hope that changes sooner rather than later. And Heroic again, looking to pivot their way up the ramp, which, let's be honest, that is the standard play here on Vertigo. Most often, you are going to see teams look to try and pressure and push in, and Twist just drops from above and neutralizes Nico.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I bet that's a surprise for him. Flying down from above. Look at all the utility they're using every single round just to try and clear out those sandbags. There's not been anybody there since the pistol. But I guess if you make that slip up once, you're going to make sure that that punish never comes in ever again. Heroic loving to play this clock very, very low and just holding players around the other side of the map. Plopsky about to come under fire, but he spotted his opponents. He does so much damage to Cadian and kills off another in the rotation. Twist almost takes down Storn. It's two incredibly low players for Heroic. And in fact, Storn just trying to escape, but walking away. Rez will catch him with his back turned. And again, the rotation comes in from Heroic. They should get an after plant here. The fact is they're low.
Yeah, Cadian is hemorrhaging right now, and his teammate's been taken down. His position now compromised. As he fires off the warning shot, it ends up being, we'll at least get the one. Cadian with a point to prove. Doing a good job so far. Smoke goes down, tickling the bomb. Cadian gets another one. And there is no kit on Hampus. He'd have to stick this fully, and he has stuck it fully. The amount of audacity, the courage to just lock it down, and Cadian never expected it. He was sat there waiting for the push. Oh no, that's so brutal.
Yeah, he played that incredibly well. And that's the thing, when you hear that bomb tapped and then see someone peek through the edge of the smoke, you're sort of expecting that there's no one on the bomb at that point, but Hampus stuck it initially, let his teammate peek, and just managed to get out of there.
Before yesterday, Nip had lost 5 in a row on Vertigo, including a 16-6 loss to Heroic. So it goes to show that near past and distant memory that obviously Nip will be hoping for didn't fare too well for them, but Heroic, very rough start. Again, they took 4 players down though, and the post plant and some round loss bonus accruing for them means they can consistently get these buys into fruition. Nip, very quickly, Twist gets into the box angle, but it won't be any kills going his way. He actually concedes. And with that, Heroic have the advantage for one of the first times in this half.
Yeah, the problem we're witnessing at the moment is NIP, although they're winning rounds, they're never winning any of them cleanly. They're losing players every single time. It's been majority rounds won with, well, literally one player alive. So their finances still suck. If anything, Heroic currently with their loss bonus plus bomb plants are actually coming out with better purchases every single time. And the problem with that is now that they're winning all the opening duels, there's, well, basically NIP have to try and fight their way back into rounds. That involves re-aggression, and that's something that's very, very difficult to do against a team like Heroic. It was mentioned in the interview for Barup. He was like, are you going to be able to deal with the craziness? Rez, though, I don't know how he's still alive here. 2 kills, finally put down, attempting a third. Plopsky has rotated into position, but unfortunately, Vince, it needs to be another MP9 clutch if they're going to take this one home.
Yeah, and last time Hampus was standing his ground against weakened oncoming Ts. This time Plopsky has no idea where they are. They have full AKs, plenty of utility, and he's about to walk into the trap that's been set by Storn. AK should win out over the MP9, and even though he did connect a few shots, the superior firepower held fast, and Heroic have got their second, and as a result of their second round, this may actually be a force buy. There are 2 players on $1,400 right now for Nip, so they're eyeing up a double eco, hence the force buy does come into play. So a golden opportunity for Heroic to get themselves neck and neck in this game again.
Yeah, somewhat unfortunate. I guess the argument could be that Heroic probably should have won a couple of the other rounds. But if anything, NIP are kind of being punished for winning those rounds so closely. Their investment is pretty much as bad as it gets. Sure, you've got the FAMAS at least onto Rez, but, well, there's a reason we don't really say hero FAMAS very much, Vince, and that's because it's not really that much of a hero gun. Nork is gone already. The wall bangs start things off convincingly, and although they've stacked up this A site, they really don't have much to play with at all. Nice start from Hampus, but Ultimately, he's still traded out. Well, they're doing a lot of damage, but unfortunately, they're not getting any of the rewards for it.
Maybe able to claim those rewards later on. Flashbang, though, forces Twist to change his angle, and in doing so, Borup gets up close with the AK. Plopsky will be setting up for exits, and just going back to that FAMAS point, it is in such a strange shape at the moment. Borup even said in his interview with Frankie that he decides between that and the MP5. That's when you know the FAMAS is pretty trash. When you're actually saying to yourself, you know, the MP5 is not too bad. I mean, Borup is very good with that gun, to be fair to him. So it works.
It's a bit weird. Let's be real. Like, I don't think there's anyone else making that decision. I think that's just him. Like, if that's the case, then maybe you're a little bit odd. But let's be honest, it takes some things that initially considered odd in Counter-Strike to then create a new meta, which everybody hates, and then they fix the thing that was broken initially. So, you know, that's how we fix things in Counter-Strike. So if that gun is as good as Borup claims it to be, then we'll see everybody use it for about 6 months to a year. And then Valve will go, oh, that looks pretty broken. Why didn't anyone say anything? After we screamed at them for months. But either way, unfortunately, it's going to be another sucky buy. There's not even cash for an MP5 this time. That's how dire the economy of NIP is at this point. And the other thing as well is we're not even going to be seeing an AWP or anything in the next round either, because their finances really were reset as hard as humanly possible. So Heroic are just getting a chance to, well, have a nice little fragging session, maybe warm up a bit from some of the earlier rounds where they lost to an MP9, and basically just build up a ridiculous bank. Because even going into this round, if they somehow manage to lose this, they'd be able to rebuy in the next. The fact is they're probably going to keep this one squeaky clean.
Oh, it'd be very surprising if they didn't. It feels like it's only Hampus that could really put a potential wrench in the works. There's 2 USPs alongside it. Rez does actually pick off Cadian, so there you have it. They're going to lose a rifle, bare minimum. Assuming that they do pick up. And Rez has got a second by himself. No grenade damage, no flashes, just a straight up raw USP double frag. That is unreal. And he could be going in for a little bit more. He's down to 3 HP. He's the last man standing, and eventually the AKs do sweep in. But the fact that he got 2 frags out of that round is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, that's definitely cost that never should have been there for Heroic. Luckily, again, playing the T side, you're going to get away with a lot more. You make more money off bomb plants and build up cash a lot easier with rebuys being lesser. So it's not that much of a punish. They do still have the ability to rebuy again into the next round. And as said, the purchase coming up for NIP is not ideal. They're going to have a FAMAS in the mix. They're going to have some utility missing. And because of that, there's certain angles that they almost have to aggress on. They have to take risks to try and make sure they're not just going to be shot out of rounds. This time, they're looking for ramp control. And hey, it's gone fantastically well. Tesses taken out through the smoke. And now, in fact, the CTs are actually just going to leave one man behind and start rotating players off completely. I like this. Regressing, retaking map control, and not allowing Heroic to have space.
Certainly one of the best ways of dealing with the lack of utility and firepower. You constrict the Ts. That's a great flashbang, but Twist using the sandbags. Now Hampus up to the plate in pretty good form with a previous ace, but he will go down. Nip still maintain the player advantage. Nico and Cadian needing to chime together with the bomb down. Nico gets his first kill, but now he needs to rinse and repeat. He needs to hit consistency. Smoke down towards the bomb. Molotov on the ramp affords him a little bit of safe passage, but there's a gap in that smoke, and Nork makes the most of it. Nip, with a very poor buy, have made it work and saved the Norp and an AK on top of it.
Yeah, Nork is just killing people through smoke. So I guess the last one, as you said, had a gap in it at least, but that's some cheeky openers. Again, though, like you say, oh yeah, they managed to save this and this. The fact is they still only had 2 players alive, so they haven't had a clean round, and because of that, it's the same scenario. They've come in with a much worse buy than they had initially. I have an MP9 onto Plopsky, who's just tried to do something absolutely ridiculous to kick off the round, and while Heroic were more than ready. Sure, he does a lot of damage onto Nico, but they're going to take that man advantage all day long.
already equaling their horrific loss to Heroic in the past on Vertigo on Nip, with a 6th round being posted up early doors. A lot of it off the back of that phenomenal 4-0 start. Rez, thinking of going back in for a second peek, smokes it down, but catching Burp with a nade out. Will get instantly traded though. But he did also see the bomb drop down, so that will give his teammates an idea as to what's coming up. Twist holding the line. He needs to have a big round, but Tessis instantly evaporates him with the AK. And in that 2-on-4, even though 2 players sub 10 HP, you still favor Heroic to close the door on this round. Smokes and Molotovs being tossed in with flashbangs. Hampus gets the drop. That's the bomb that goes down with him. 5 HP for Hampus, and Heroic pull the plug, but someone still needs to pick up the bomb.
What's going on? This is such a confusing way to play the round. Like, Nico's just going all the way around, I guess. They've only got 15 seconds, Vince. As long as they don't die, NIP have won this. They're trying to pincer in from multiple angles. This is so risky, and Nico knows he has to run at this point. It's all into the 1v1. Nork just has to escape. Is there time for the plant? I'm not sure there is. It's going to be ridiculously close and not quite enough for Cadian. A really bold call from the Heroic side, and the Danes have let things slip.
Mate, I'm somewhat speechless. It's so mind-blowing. There was like 25, 28 seconds left when they went for that rotation. I was just saying that you expect them to convert even with 2 players. Look, it was what, a 2v4?
Yep.
That's unreal.
Also, to point out that this is another round where NIP only have 1 player surviving. I think we're going to have to get a stat for that at the end of the map. That is ridiculous, though, that 3 of their players were all on 72 assists going into this match. So, talking about team synergy, I don't think you can do any better than that.
Yeah, there was some synergy between Cadian and Nork as well with the stats, the head-to-head. And speaking of which, it's Nork that goes on to Cadian. I think they had identical kills and nearly identical deaths. The ADR was slightly in favor of Cadian, though. But certainly not in that trade. Now, if Nip could finally hold on and get a clear-cut, squeaky clean round, then they could start to build up a bank balance, and things get a little bit more sketchy and dicey for Heroic. Still trailed by 3, but they've lost the first player. Will be boosting up with Storm, taking point, gap in the smoke, tries to make the most of it, but he is fended off by Hampus with his M4. It will be a labored attempt. They switch across for the AWP now, and Nork stands his ground alongside Hampus. Heroic in trouble again, and they also have to deal and contend with a flank that's coming round from Twist. All they have to do is stay alive on the site, and Twist will do the rest. It's unlikely anybody checks for this rotation, and here come the Jaws chomping down on Heroic. It's a double spray on Twist. And Tessis, his head will be spinning with all the threats he has to deal with. Twist comes in for a 3rd. I said they needed to get a clean round. Well, they've picked it off. Not a single casualty.
I do wonder if that Borup interview that we saw earlier might be something he lives to regret. He said the Casper's going to be ready for what they have for us. Well, so far that's not been the case. We've seen lots of successful aggressive pushes coming out from NIP, and not just one time either. There's been rotations where they take the initial map control and then fall back and reposition elsewhere. It's been a really impressive CT start from them, and sure, they've got some clutches along the way. I'm not going to deny the fact that this could easily be a match in either team's favor. Like, even though it's so ridiculously close, if you win 3 or 4 1v1s, I don't think I can favor you heavily. I'm just impressed that they're able to go so toe-to-toe with Heroic. It's been a surprise throughout this tournament that Heroic have been easily one of the best teams, but at times have let things slip quite heavily. And in the clutches, that's been the case, where their decision-making's been a little bit off. And also, they are being caught out by NIP.
Absolutely. NIP have had their number multiple times. Rez just jumping, hoping for the best, and he does survive with 15 HP. That's very fortunate. And Plopsky elsewhere goes on to Nico. He's had a real rough game. So is Tessis, though. This is a guy is being touted to have some of the best aim in the world from his teammates. And yet right now, just 4 kills to his name. Need to see him have more impact. He is certainly a player capable of so much. Very comfortably towards the top end of skill-wise. But it's Nip that have had everything go their way. Hampus flashbanged out, still throws in the incendiary. That will stall the push, but they don't have control of side. And the T's are looking to make the most of it as they start to execute on the site.
So much counter utility being thrown onto Heroic at the moment, and Hampus, I've been loving how risky some of the plays he's been making. He's been getting away with aggressive pushes, and even with the smoke down, he's going to manage to find 2 kills over the top of it. Storm and Cadian, they have been the 2 best players for this side so far, but they get absolutely nothing. And while it's finally a clean round coming out from the side of NIP, Heroic, it was close. It was a battle within the early stages. But now we're looking at a 10-4, potentially even 11-4 half for NIP. You have to start to look at the mistakes that have been made.
Hampus is having a worldie of a performance. 15 kills and 8 assists. 129 ADR, and he goes in again. Past the smoke, you can see the confidence is coursing through him. Bypassing one of the players on the ramp, and he will clean up with 2. But Caden and Burrup have both found themselves kills alongside it. There's the MP5 that we were touching on earlier. And now he can trade up to an M4. That being said, though, familiar territory again, Tom. They trail by a player.
Yeah, it must be frustrating at this point. Hampus, back-to-back rounds, back-to-back aggressive, risky plays. Well, back-to-back successes. Still, though, we know how good Heroic are at turning the tide. There's so much depth within this roster. It's something that's been mentioned many a time. The 2 players remaining, though, have had a bit of a quiet performance thus far. But there's always time for change. Time for a step up. Nork, he's been great. It's good to see him. Plopsky's just waiting. He's dropped the bomb. Sure, there's plenty of time, but Nico will have to double his kills in 1 round if he's going to be able to turn this back and give his side a 5th. The first isn't even going to go his way. It's 11-4. NIP, they've had some close rounds, but they've come out massively on top and now look to close in the second half.
resentment flowing down the line. I can't stand when you are not near. We can sort it out when you're here. Face to face. Let's talk about it. Face to face. Face to
The last time Heroic and Nip met on Vertigo, it was a bloodbath, and it was the Danes that had their hand raised high. But how things have changed in the last few months. It's Nip, it's the Swedes that have a commanding lead, 11-4, and now they jump across to the T side that many would argue is actually the easier of the two. We'll have to see if Heroic can withstand this, or if they will get barreled out. Twist taking a quick fight against Cadian, but he comes out second best. And the perfect start for Heroic, but they need to convert this.
Yeah, that's for sure. We know that Heroic can get themselves out of tricky situations. They've got a fantastic in-game leader for that sort of thing, but they need this pistol, and that's a little bit dicey. Nork and Hampus have managed to get away with a positive trade, although Storm in a good position. Lead this into a 3-on-2. In fact, make that just one. It's all left on Toplopsky. There hasn't really been a weak link to this NIP roster so far. Everybody performing. Plenty of clutches going their way. Can this man pull off another?
Does have the bomb. And we'll get the first 1v1 trade going in his favor. 45 seconds now, spilling out onto the side. Checks his angles, but Borup's USP is on point. Heroic do survive by the skin of their teeth, and now they'll look to try and put some more rounds back to back and build up that economy, but that would have been a bit of a sketchy one. Had Borup have died, it would have been down to a one-on-one.
Yeah, I think the attempted switch to triple burst jumping through the air headshot would have been quite tilting if he had died to it, but you know, it happens. In fact, if that had happened, it wouldn't even be the most BS thing we've seen this tournament so far. So, you know, I'm almost ready for it at this point. NIP not going to be investing much into this at all. You see Hampus getting out a Deeg in an attempt to try and do some damage, remove some extra weaponry. Of course, that can just be picked up once he dies, and what now lands in Nork's hand. Will it be the Cursed Eagle, or is anybody actually going to manage a frag? It's not looking great. In fact, Storm has now made his way past 100 ADR. 19 kills already, and he has been one of the shining lights for this squad. Twist even getting a kill onto Cadian is something extra for the next round. Will force a rebuy, which I don't think NIP will be too unhappy about at all. In fact, Storm is actually the top fragger in the server right now. That's kind of mental considering how this game has gone so far.
No, absolutely. He has been consistently very solid on the side of Heroic. In those rounds where they were surviving with 1 or 2, Storm was having huge impact. And they touched it on the desk. He's a very versatile player. Now he's using the SMG, ripping to the far side of the B stairs, dropping on Hampus. Smoke deployed, allows Storm a chance to relocate again, get up close with that SMG, keeping his angles incognito, as unpredictable as possible. Something discussed about in that interview with Borup. And Arcadian getting one. Aggression downstairs, catching the T's unaware, but Rez stands his ground, and now Nip have the advantage. Heroic hot off the back of winning the pistol. The very real possibility of collapsing on only the second hurdle.
This has been such a scrappy round, like both teams catching our players in odd positions, leaving lurkers around different positions on the map. Like, this is definitely not the most structured game of Counter-Strike we've ever seen, but given us some decent highlights. The problem now is whether or not Heroic can actually do anything if this comes down to a retake. They've used their last piece of utility to try and deny a bomb plant and give them some extra space. Currently the top and bottom fragger for their side looking to try and combine, and Plopsky again. We see this play so often over the top of the smoke. He's only going to get one, but it doesn't matter. Rez is there to back him up. NIP are straight back on the board. And for Heroic, this is an odd situation to be in. Because Storm has enough for an AWP. Some of the other players barely have enough for pistol and armor.
Yeah, I almost feel like the way that NIP are playing here, and AWP may not be the greatest of decisions because it's a very mobile approach that the T's are having, but Cadian has gone for it. He's decided to pull the trigger. It will be a glass cannon, I believe, as a tactical timeout has been called. So for me, Tom, I don't want to say it's over if they lose this round, but they're going to be in such bad shape that they'll probably wish it was. They're in dire straits right now. They desperately need a W.
Yeah, the thing is, this is the sort of round where Cadian normally gets a 4K. Like that's where we've seen some of these crazy comebacks from Heroic. Is like a lot of the time when things are going bad, you see him having to focus on other people's game other than his own, and then every once in a while he does something like this where he just bangs out an AWP. The problem being, he's not actually the one to take the fight this time. Nico tries to support, he gets flashed, and while for Rez, that's a fairly easy frag to start things off. Not the sort of start that Heroic were looking for. And then the problem is, once you lose this ramp control, the AWP definitely loses a lot of its value, especially when you're playing Glass Cannon. It's not like it's that easy to play any of these other angles because you have to think about it. You can't go near sandbags. That's constantly naded. If you don't have armor, you can't play there. You can't really play towards the back of the site because, again, that's a common Molotov spot that will be cleared. So they're trying to re-aggress elsewhere. They're trying to take control of other portions of the map. What this does mean, however, is if the T's just walk into A, this round is over.
Yeah, I almost feel like Heroic is setting up for a save. It's like that gamble stack that we talk about on maps like Dust. You push together. If it doesn't work out, you just save. No problems. But actually, they are coming back into this. This is really surprising to me, Tom, because they moved themselves out of the firing line. They gave up the site, and they went back in again. And this indecision has cost two of them their lives. They at least do pull back with the AWP and M4, which were the more expensive of the options. But this round is done. And NIP again are making it work. And he did touch on a really key moment that Cadian wanted to get aggressive on ramp, but there was an exquisite flashbang that landed right in his face. And in doing so, forced him back. And I completely agree with the sentiment that after they lost ramp control, it almost felt like the round went with it, to be honest, Tom. It didn't seem like Heroic were ever in that round afterwards.
Yeah, like obviously we know that Cadian can switch up on the fly, but when you don't have many pieces to play with, when you're basically just working with pawns, it becomes very, very difficult to try and actually outmaneuver your opponent who is sat with a full belt of utility and can just set up. So I like what they did initially. Like, okay, we've sort of failed in taking ramp. Let's try and reposition to another spot where the AWP will be able to work the pick. What I'm not the biggest fan of is you've made that gamble. You've taken your risk, and then it's almost like at the last second you've gone, oh, no, I actually meant red. And it's like, well, once the ball's rolling, it's a little bit too late.
Right, exactly. They could have had extra Kevlar. They could have had an extra weapon. As it stands, though, Cadian is holding B alone, and so far, will yield some results. But they need to build a lot off the back of that, because elsewhere they are vulnerable. Plopsky, a dicey smoke walking past the USP wielding player, but now here's the noise and he collapses down with the AK. Storm also getting one. Plopsky is all alone. He's being encircled, and that will be an assault rifle that now trades back in favor of Heroic, and Teslas can pick that up. Heroic have got it done. One of the strangest buys, one of the strangest rounds, but they've made it work.
That was really peculiar. Okay, the openers from Cadian, the kills he gets. I kind of expected that last round. He's done it a little bit later. That's absolutely fine. The thing that's weird is just how Plopsky manages to get completely behind them and unfortunately doesn't kill the man with the rifle. I think if he gets the man with the rifle, that round probably goes in their favor. Then Down gets a double, and that's a very different story. The pace change, though, this could be a difference maker here. Twist has just picked up 2 kills with a Tech 9. And well, now they're trying to find a way to get past Tessus to give them access to this B side, but instead they push into him with the bomb. He sprayed wildly, and Twist has found an AWP and found his 3rd kill of the round. There are times where Twist goes off the chains, becomes the best player in the server, and there is very little you can do. I think we might have just hit that moment, Vince.
Man, there is something about Swedes and Tech 9s. I don't know what to tell you. It must be in the DNA. Every Swedish player just somehow is a madman with a Tech 9, and Twist just round the corner, taking off multiple heads. Just blitzkrieg, but you saw Cadian get caught. This is the moment here. Cadian went to peak middle. There was a nade and a flashbang that forced him away. Then he gets caught in transition, and the rest is history. Twist, excellent work, picking up the AWP, using it against the oncoming CTs, and look at the effect it has, Tom. We're in this brutal position again with Heroic hanging by a thread.
Well, Cadian again. It's another opener. He's definitely having impact with the AWP. The problem is they're having to take such risks elsewhere. Storm trying to catch the ninjas with their pants down, and unfortunately, what you don't realize is they sleep in pajamas. with the remaining CTs left without much. Somehow Tessus has managed to kill here. The repeat is unadvised. I'm not sure how he was planning to get away with that one, but he does set up Barup for the re-aggression. Somehow these rounds just seem to work out wonderfully for them, and Barup, I think he's just about going to escape this. It's now left on to Nork as Twist goes down as well, and after a round one with sheer pace and flair, now a bit of a scare for the ninjas, who, sure, their money's not bad, but they don't want to just be handing all this weaponry over.
Certainly not. The good news is that the second CT wasn't there to pick up a secondary AWP. That being said, they had 2 AWPs last round. They got rushed. Maybe they'll think twice of picking a second one up anyway. They wouldn't be able to afford it even if they wanted. Nip can also buy. This feels like a war of attrition, Tom. It's just who is going to give up first? Who's going to fatigue first? Now, you would obviously say that Nip have a bit of extra gas in the tank purely off the basis that they're 14-8 in the lead. But their economy is starting to dwindle again somewhat. Flashes and smokes being exchanged. Ramp has consistently been the battleground that both teams have elected to put their flag on. But more often than not, it has been the Swedish flag still raised come the end of these rounds. And now the smoke begins to fade, as will Tessus. Hampus gets the entry and he backs away. And that's a huge entry. That keeps multiple CTs interested, while the bulk of Nip push on B. They still haven't fully funneled their way out onto the site. They've been stalled a little bit of time by Storn's smoke. And some good utilities being tossed down into the range of the CTs. Flashbang is good. Storn caught a glimpse of a player dodging into him just before the flash detonated. That would be Rez, who still stands with only 8 HP to his name. Cadian still trying to battle away into this site. The bomb hasn't been planted just yet, but will be momentarily. And there's no high ordnance, there's no incendiaries to deal with these threats that are posted up close in the form of Rez. A lot of damage to Nork, who can now use that box as his sanctuary. And Heroic need to make a split-second decision. Do we go in and try and retake, or do we back out and save? They will be going for it, and so far, they're paying with it in blood. So many T's are being scattered in the wind, but now Twist will evaporate and erode the CT threat. 7 map points for Nip.
A really nice try from Nico, but unfortunately the round was already over, I feel, once the T's managed to take control of the site. And it almost seems like they've taken a little bit from the Fnatic playbook of just like, oh, smoke, you say? No, I don't see smokes. It's a couple of times now where Hampus has been making like all-in plays, and they've worked almost every single time. It doesn't seem like they're ready for this level of aggression coming out of him, even though it was something mentioned previously by the desk. Once again, a complete change of pace, a blast in towards this site. We had Cadian saying, well, these sort of rounds, they're a risk, but if they work, it ends the game. And that's exactly what NIP have gone for. A faster push into this site, leaving just 2 players standing. It's on to Storm to try and save them, Vince, and I can't say I believe.
He has been the top fragger for the bulk of this map, even after they got blitzed in the first half, but now his position is known, and there's Twist with the AK. Revenge has been served, and I'm sure it's a sweet meal for Nip, as they will turn the knife into Heroic.
Yeah, no, a fantastic performance, and on their opponent's map choice as well. Nonetheless, we are going to be off to a break, and then the desk will be back to break this one down for you.